All right, so we want to take a quick minute. Just had a chance to listen to Jerome Powell, the current federal chairman of the Federal Reserve banking system, and he just gave a presentation to the Council of Foreign Relations, and then did a little Q&A afterwards. But once again, I was watching it and thinking about, um, man, it becomes more and more obvious the more speeches that he gives that this is just one big experiment. And so, in trying to explain where we're at, where we're heading, the emphasis has continuously been on the tools that will be used in the days ahead when we meet that next crisis. And so, to piggyback off of what he said, was it 2 weeks ago during the FOMC conclusion of their, this decision not to raise or to drop rates rather. And so he mentioned that, what they're doing now, they're looking to get the public's opinion. And so they're doing that Fed listens type of, gathering around the country, as well as looking to get ideas from a variety of think tanks, economists, and just people in general that can help them better prepare, as well as to, just probably more so not take complete ownership for what's coming, because it's all been monetarily induced. But yet, a couple of things I want to hit on, and I would encourage you, if you have not, take a minute to actually watch some of the speech, or if not all of the speech, or rewind to the end, listen to some of the Q&A at the Council of Foreign Relations. But at the end of the day, we are a part of the biggest experiment probably known to man, because for the first time in recorded history has there been complete control of a currency globally by privately held institutions, and they've basically run their entire course of action as far as draining the wealth of the entire country, nevertheless the globe, for the Federal Reserve Bank. But now they're talking about what's next, and they are very limited as to what they can do to keep this thing going. And that's why I believe there's such a dire scramble to try to get people's opinions and ideas in hopes of them being able to save the last remaining bit of credibility, if they still have that, before things completely unravel. So once again, more of the same talk, but yet as a consumer, as a citizen here in this country, the first thing that came to my mind is, if you know that this is a monetary experiment, then you have a couple options basically. You can continue to ignore it and act like everything's going to be fine, or you can continue to do things that are pretty much opposite of what monetary policy has subjected the world to, which is more debt, as well as go against the mainstream narrative of saving in the primary instrument that is the byproduct of their monetary policy, and that happens to be the Federal Reserve note for the Federal Reserve Bank itself. But ultimately, as this video is titled, bet against the Fed. Like, that is probably the most radical thing that I probably have ever said on this channel here. But it kind of summarizes what might have to do if they're going to, hedge, bet against, position themselves in a better position, knowing that this is one big monetary experiment. And the monetary toolkits that they kept referring to, he threw out the possibility of more forward guidance. They throw out the quick quantitative easing, and he was saying that's all things that we can, that we'll probably, utilize, but we want to stick to right now with just the interest rates. We want to focus on interest rates. That's our primary focus now. But yet that ELB, the even lower bound, there's not much room, wiggle room rather, to really be able to, drop rates that will stimulate the economy. So they're going to have to implement some more tools. So one of the people in the audience, older gentleman, asked directly, what tools, are there other tools that perhaps the Fed have not used before, that perhaps other central banks are using, that you guys would consider? And, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? So he hinted at, tools. We're focusing on utilizing the tools we've already used. And then there's other tools that we haven't really, touched yet, but yet, that they're available to us. They're all within our parameters. So once again, listening to this guy speak, apart from them knowing the end, they don't know how to get to the end without this thing completely blowing up in their face, making them look foolish. But ultimately, the Federal Reserve note, which is the product of the Federal Reserve banking system, is whatever tool they implement. The result and the impact will be revealed in the Federal Reserve note. So if you know that this is an experiment, if you know that the Federal Reserve note itself is the byproduct or the product that they will ultimately impact, that impacts our lives, think about this. Our lives, your life, my life, everyone who's watching this, your life is heavily influenced by monetary policy. So ultimately, your financial future probably is weighed against the monetary experiment that we're all a part of. And so if you know that, if you believe that, then betting against the Fed would not be too radical overall, because it's simply, in a simple form, would mean basically taking the Federal Reserve notes, which are the products of the Federal Reserve system, and basically utilizing or redeeming them the way they were introduced to the people, 100 years ago. Because remember, 100 years ago, every Federal Reserve note was redeemable for silver and gold. So if we know that that was how they were introduced to the American public, nevertheless the world, that might be the best way to bet against the Fed at this current moment, knowing that as a part of this monetary experiment, they're about to throw out some radical ideas and suggestions that ultimately, no matter what they do, it's going to reflect in their currency, which is their product. So I thought I would just share my thoughts on this, but more importantly, encourage you to take the time to actually watch the FOMC, or not the FOMC, but the Foreign Council of Foreign Relations interview there, because you'll get a chance to hear more of how he really don't know what's going on, and they're going to implement some tools. And I would prefer if people are aware that their financial futures are all subject to these tools that they're going to be rolling out pretty soon. But other than that, and in regards to the interview yesterday with Leor Gantz, I want to apologize for the quality of the video. He was out of the country and internet service wasn't the greatest, but ultimately, one of the things that Leor said that I think was something that, once again, we can agree upon, is that quantitative easing is now a permanent policy. There's no way around it. It's going to remain, and it's a part of our financial future. So if they're going to be easy, ultimately creating more currency, betting against the Fed may not be a bad idea. But I would love to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below. And more importantly, if you find us informative, feel free to share it, give it a thumbs up. And a lot of people need to know this information. So betting against the Fed is not something that people should take lightly. So other than that, let me know your thoughts down below. Peace.